Hello everyone, this is Chelsea Downing here, and I am currently a fourth grade teacher working for Fairfax County Public Schools. My classroom has a blended learning environment and students have one-to-one devices. So blended learning definitely sparks my interest. I'm currently a graduate student at George Mason University seeking my master's in blended learning, and this is a screencast about information I'm going to be sharing with you found through research, trying to answer my research question for a course called Edit 766. So, what is my research question? I was curious about blended learning and student engagement, so I created this question. How does blended learning impact student engagement in elementary classrooms? So I'm going to be using 3 pieces of research that I analyzed. The first research article was titled How Blended Learning Impacts Student Engagement in an Early Childhood Class. The second piece of research used was titled The Effects of Blended Learning on K to 12th grade students. And my last piece of research was titled Student Engagement Best Practices in Teaching in a K through 5 Blended Learning Environment. So next I'm going to analyze these 3 pieces of research and the studies that were conducted. So looking at the first piece of research, this really focused on early childhood education, students of ages 3 through 5. And the purpose of this research was to determine if a blended learning approach increases student engagement in early childhood classrooms. Quantitative data was collected through observation by recording which students were actively engaged, passively engaged, disengaged, or disruptive. This was taken during 20 minutes during a small group time for 9 weeks. The qualitative data was collected through observation, by teacher and para-educator interviews with students, and through journal notes. So, the findings of this study presents that blended learning does have a positive impact on student engagement in an inclusive preschool classroom. The data shows that when students were given a choice of what small group they wanted to go to and for how long, the number of students who were actively engaged increased as the study went on. And the data also shows that students were more engaged when the activities during the small group showed up twice during the week rather than having a new activity every day. Additionally, both classes had a rise in active engagement and a decline in disengagement and students who were being disruptive. Even though the data shows that the classes had a similar positive effect of blended learning on student engagement, the areas of engagement differed. Now, one limitation of this study is that there were only 35 students involved who had participated. There was only one blended classroom used, and the study only focused on early childhood education, not elementary education. Now, my second piece of research that I analyzed focused on kindergarten through 12th grade, and this was a literature review. And the review examined effects of blended learning on student engagement, student achievement, and student perception in these kindergarten through 12th grade classrooms. 25 peer-reviewed studies were published in this article between 2008 and 2006. Now, the findings in this literature review, all of the studies that were analyzed indicated that student engagement, student achievement, and student perspectives all increased when blended learning was used. Students also developed additional skills through the use of blended learning, such as the ability to self-pace and self-direct. When focusing on engagement results in this review, the research showed that students became more engaged with the content and the material. Case studies of schools or individual classes that implemented blended learning also saw teacher observations of increased student engagement and increased task completion. This increase in engagement became clear, and students were able to express themselves in new ways and explore innovative new ideas that were not available in a traditional face-to-face only classroom. Now, limitations for this study were that the sample size was small, and in the literature reviews that were analyzed, not all of the studies defined blended learning in the same way. Now, for the third and final piece of research used, this piece analyzed kindergarten through 6th grade learners. Now, there were differing methods of tablet use that was observed in 10 classrooms, while the data was collected on student engagement. Teachers were asked interview questions and given surveys. The study had 3 research questions. 1, what tablet methodology supports best practices in a K through 5 blended learning environment? 2, how does tablet use impact student engagement? And 3, with an increase in the use of tablets in the classrooms, what are teachers' perceptions of professional development and needs? The second question here is what I analyzed closely. So the results concluded that blended learning makes their students more productive. There were results in elevated test scores, and teachers utilizing the tablets drew on a variety of different strategies to engage their students and were very intentional about their methods. This study also indicates higher levels of student engagement, which reflects a promising learning environment for schools where blended learning has been implemented. Limitations for this study also include a small sample size. It is larger than the other research that I reviewed, but it would still be considered a small sample size. This study also not only had 1 research focus, and not 2, but 3 research questions. So let's reflect and think back to my research question of How does blended learning impact student engagement in elementary school classrooms? So, my conclusion from these three sources that I used is that it is safe to say that blended learning does have a positive impact on student engagement. It seems like students are more engaged when blended learning is used in the classroom and that less disruptive behaviors may occur. More research can always be done, especially research with larger sample sizes. Research is more limited when you are looking for elementary levels, so more research pertaining to this level of education could be done. I'd like to thank you so much for listening to this screencast, and I hope that you found the analysis of this research to be useful. The following slides include my picture citations and my research citations.